Let's do a stock up, stock down here and focus on a couple guys in particular. I don't think there's a player that you can better start off with than Gio Reyna, right? For all the reasons that you can possibly imagine. Under the spotlight, played in both games, 2 assists in the final. I think it's an obvious stock up here. The bigger question with Gio Reyna, Herc, is has he proved himself to be a guaranteed starter for this U.S. men's national team moving forward after what we saw in the Nations League?
Strike first, strike hard, Cobra Kai! That's all I kept thinking watching him and Joe Scally. They played with that swagger. He played with that swagger. He proves, and I know it's Mexico, I know it's Canada, you want to see him consistently do it against everybody, but the man is 20 years of age. And he controls the game. Listen to what I am telling you. He controls the game. This is why he's essential. This is why he needs to be in the starting lineup every single time. When he comes out at halftime, Canada grows into the game. They have more opportunities. You know why? Because you don't have somebody on the ball that's controlling the tempo, controlling the rhythm and the pace of this game. As Gio Reyna went, the U.S. men's national team went as well. You may be still dangerous in transition, but you allow the opponent to grow, to have the ball. Not with Gio Reyna. Gio Reyna has the highest ceiling of any U.S. men's national team player. And not only is his ceiling high, but when he's on the field, so is his presence. He is that player. He has that about him, but you need to keep him healthy. We saw in this final, it's a knock to the calf, and he's out in a big game, and goals change games. Maybe a goal from Canada, and they're in this, and it could be different. But when he's on the field, just the control that he has, it's so important. I don't see how you can keep him off the field.
You talk about that presence, the ability to hold the ball. There was a play in the first half before he got taken off, and I think the Canadians knew that they had to, both on him and Pulisic, kind of make it physical. But I think it was Osorio, and he just turns away from him. And it's a level of class that you don't see very much on the American team, but really anywhere else in CONCACAF. The underlying question here is, did he do enough that when Greg Berhalter eventually takes the team back over, he has to start him or else it's going to create an issue? I might argue that had he played terribly, even if Greg Berhalter didn't start him, it was going to create an issue. But I think the bigger question here is, if he is an undeniable starter, Herc, and this is what Berhalter's going to have to figure out, who are you taking off? Because the math would suggest it has to be one of the 3 in that MMA midfield, and I think people have fallen in love with that midfield. So who are you taking off if you're bringing Reyna on?
I think it would depend on the opponent, and it wouldn't be too hard to actually say that given the head coach here is Greg Berhalter, and he's going to do his rotations. You're going to have that rotation. But right now, who are you going to take out? Weston McKennie, who's also an aerial presence on both sides of the ball and can be a playmaker via that facet of the game. You're going to take off your team captain, Tyler Adams. You're not going to take him off. Would it be Yunus Musa, who really impressed me a lot over these 2 games, playing as a double pivot, who showed a different facet of his game? Maybe Yunus is the odd man out unjustly because Gio is that good, but I don't think you're going to have to really come across that too many times with the amount of rotation that Greg Berhalter has shown that he's done over the course of his career as a U.S. men's national team manager.
All right, so Gio Reyna, a big, fat stock up for the CONCACAF Nations League. His good friend Joe Scally next up to debate here on Futbol Americas. See if we're giving him a stock up or a stock down. Went up against Alphonso Davies in the final, of course, replacing the suspended Serginho Dest, who played pretty well himself in the semifinal. Herc, you got a couple very good options at right back. Should Joe Scally be number 1, or should Serginho Dest be number 1?
No, it's still going to be Serginho Dest. Let me talk about Joe Scally for a second. Joe Scally went toe-to-toe with not one of the premier players in this region, the best player in this region, and kept him relatively quiet. Joe Scally is the same age as Gio Reyna, and he's playing beyond his years. Proves why he should have been not only at the World Cup, which he was, but playing at the World Cup. There were players who maybe you could say weren't in their best moment playing over Joe Scally. You didn't give him that confidence. He could have been a key player for you. And Joe Scally is a multifaceted player. Right side and left side must absolutely be available when somebody isn't it. Anthony Robinson or a Serginho Dest. But Serginho Dest has proven that he's one of the better players with the ball in this region. From the right back position, he plays the game unlike anybody in this region. He is a playmaker from the back. In fact, so much so a playmaker that when he goes forward, He's like another 10. He's like another midfielder. And when he's in the final third, he has that quality about him for the final pass, for the final ball that ends up in the back of the net under no circumstances. And I know we question his defending, but he's so good with the ball going forward. Under no circumstances should you ever think about taking him out.
Okay, so in most of the games the U.S. is going to play in this region, they're going to be favorites and protagonists and on the ball. Sergiño Dest makes all the sense in the world, but we have criticized and focused on his one-on-one defending in the past. So if we think about that and we think about what we've just been talking about, which are all these important knockout games and big tournaments where you're going to be going against better teams who probably have more of the ball, is there a case to be made that in those games, Joe Scally's a better option?
No, just look at the World Cup. I thought Sergiño Dest did fine. When you played against England, Sergiño Dest there, I thought he was fine defending. Actually, when he takes a defending first approach, he does fine. It's not what you want from Sergiño Dest 99% of the time. You'd rather say, hey, we want the ball, and when we have the ball, look how dangerous this weapon is. That is Sergiño Dest. You can't take Sergiño Dest out, man. Honestly, I know he had a bad run.
Even if he's not
Milan.
like, what if he's not playing club? Like, is he that good that even if he's not playing club, doesn't have a spot, he's still your number one right back?
Well, just look at him right now. When's the last time you saw Sergiño Dest play?
Yeah.
And look how he played against Mexico. Look at Sergiño Dest against Mexico in Arizona. It's that one play. It's that one play, Seb, that changes the game, that gives you the goal. That's Sergiño Dest. And he wasn't even confident. I want to see a confident Sergiño Dest, and this is what I love about the U.S. men's national team for players like Sergiño Dest and Christian Pulisic. It's that refresher. It's that reset button. And this is a good thing. So I understand what you're saying, and I have the same thoughts about Sergiño Dest and his defensive responsibilities and how much of maybe a problem that could be for the U.S. men's national team against better opposition. But at the highest of levels in the World Cup against a tournament favorite like England, he did absolutely fine. So I'm okay with it.
Sergiño Dest, no doubt, known for making that one big play on Sunday. The first big play came from Chris Richards. The second came from Folarin Balogun, who scored his first goal with the U.S. men's national team. Stock up or stock down, Herc? What do you think? We got our first look at him in a semifinal against Mexico and a final against Canada. Hard to find a bigger stage in this region. What do you think?
Stock up. I mean, what do you ask out of your nines? Score a goal, right? He scored a goal in the biggest of occasions for a final, in a final, for a trophy, making his debut in this final. There's not too many things you can say that are negative about him in his play in this final. I mean, between the boxes that he was very good, his hold-up play, his work rate. He understands what it takes to play as a nine when you don't have the ball at this level, at the international level. And everything we've heard, seen, and we're told about him happened in that one play. A hard, crisp run, finds the space, and then a good finish for the goal. This, to me, is a stock up. And I know here we're talking about the hype meter. Everybody was so hyped, and you think he's supposed to blow you away. This is what he does. He scores goals, and he scores goals this way. And if he continues to do this, and when he doesn't do it, continues to do what he did inside the boxes, I'm okay with this. So this is a stock up for me.
Look, he lived up to the hype in that he scored a goal in the final. It wasn't a Zlatan Ibrahimovic LA Galaxy debut. It wasn't that. It wasn't a hat trick. And I think maybe some of the hype might have made us think that. But when you look at the performance, it's really good. And Herc, I think what maybe is most important, or what, like, for me gives him the passing grade as we look back on the 180 minutes, is not really what he did, but how Tim Weah played, how Christian Pulisic played, how Gio Reyna played. And I think about why they were allowed to play like that. This guy is a real threat. He's a real threat in behind, not just because of speed, but because of smarts. He perfectly times that run on the goal with the pass from Gio Reyna. So when opposing defenses have to really focus in on a nine who's not just a stationary target, but a threat, you give Christian Pulisic space at a CONCACAF level, you give Tim Weah space at a CONCACAF level, and they are going to light you up. It's what he's meant to the other guys, Herc, that I think is really where you're going to see what he means to this national team. He'll get a goal, of course. He's a striker. He clearly has that nose. But we're going to see incredible play from the guys under and around him. And those guys are the strength of this national team.
Yeah. We saw it in one of the plays in the second half where Christian Pulisic plays on the ball back to goal. He's not a big striker. He's 5'10". He just plays big. Very strong against, I believe it was Kamar Miller there. And ends up giving a give and go with Christian Pulisic. That, I believe, is the weak side defender, ends up snuffing out right at the end as Christian tries to shoot and it goes up for a corner kick. But it's plays like that that are going to make players around him shine like Christian Pulisic.
Where do you think it leaves Ricardo Pepi?
Same place he's been. Fighting, scrapping. And when he's ready, come out and say, hey, I'm still here, which he did, by the way. So competition is good. And listen, we've spoken about Folarin Balogun. We've spoken about Ricardo Pepi. Josh Sargent is still the only World Cup forward out of those three that we just mentioned. Josh Sargent is still a player who's growing into his own and still scoring goals at a good level. So let's not just go too far out and just say it's only these two.
And we know a favorite of Greg Berhalter. Remember the beginning of World Cup qualifying. Clean slate. It was Josh Sargent was the #1 striker there for the U.S. men's national team.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.